Trump announced global tariffs of 10%. He then hiked it to 15%. This comes after the Supreme Court ruled to strike down the use of tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Joining us now to discuss this is Daniel Lacalle. He's an international financial analyst and author of the book Freedom or Equality. So, Daniel, good to have you here today. Now, the president called the ruling ridiculous. He's saying that he essentially can destroy trade, but he can't charge a little fee. Can you explain to us, how do you feel about this?
Well, obviously, I think that everybody feels that the Supreme Court ruling is at least something that comes way too late. There's a significant number of trade deals that have already happened and that are working, that have proven to be better for growth, better for global trade, and that have leveled the playing field. So I think that the Supreme Court ruling is perfectly acceptable, and obviously I am not going to comment on the ruling itself, but it doesn't change the U.S. trade policy. It doesn't change the administration's view of trade policy and leveling the playing field in global commerce. And more importantly, the entire headline-grabbing figures of 200 billion refunds, etc., has completely vanished in one day. I think that all of the trading partners that have agreed trade deals with the United States are very happy with those agreements and want to continue with them and don't want to change anything. And obviously, introducing a 15% global tariff would generate a much higher level of tariff revenues and would certainly change things dramatically for those that unwisely would decide to break those agreements.
So President Trump made trade deals under these tariffs with Europe, right? So how are European countries, the European Union, how are they feeling about this new ruling?
Obviously, we've heard a few of the officials of the European Union saying that what they want is clarity, which is a very good sign, because they're not saying that they're going to break the agreement. They're just saying, we want the United States to guarantee that it's going to be honored. And that is a great thing, because it means that the process of finalizing the deal and getting it done is likely to continue. Obviously, a lot of European Union politicians are trying to read too many things into the headline of the Supreme Court ruling. We've read some headlines in European press saying that the Supreme Court ruled tariffs as illegal. That is false, as we all know, no? So we need to understand that a lot of political turmoil is being created, but I think it's important to hear the representatives of trade of the European Union with a very balanced view, which is basically they want the EU-US trade deal to go ahead. They want the United States to clarify that the United States will honor that deal. And obviously they know that if the European Union decided to break the trade agreement, it would be exceedingly onerous for European exporters to send products to the United States. And in a year in which the EU trade surplus has been quite significant, I think that they don't want to put in danger the position of the exporters of the European Union.
And we heard earlier the trade representative saying that the policy on tariffs has not changed, but the president can use other rules to carry out this policy. So in your view, Daniel, this ruling specifically, do you think it's weakened President Trump's power or strengthened it, as the president says it did?
Well, I think that it has strengthened it, because if you think about it, we may agree with the Supreme Court that the way in which the Liberation Day tariffs were presented were not specifically legal in the sort of reading detail by detail. But what we certainly know is that what the ruling is saying is that the president can impose an embargo, that the president can put the tariffs under Section 338, Section 301, Section 232, etc., and obviously the one that has been mentioned this weekend, Section 122. And obviously what the Supreme Court has actually given the president is a lot more tools to implement an aggressive tariff policy. And I think that is why there's been such an incredible silence from the trading partners. A lot of investment banks and sell-side analysts were saying, trading partners are just going to go out and demand refunds. And obviously none of that has happened. And more importantly, the UK, the European Union are saying that what they want is for the trade deals that they have agreed upon to go ahead. I think that President Trump knows that, and that is why he has announced the 15% tariffs under Section 122, knowing that if anybody wants to break their commitments, they're going to find themselves with a huge tariff bill, in some cases twice as large as the one that was agreed upon.
So can you just talk to us a bit about how tariffs have impacted the U.S. so far? Has it been good or has it been bad?
Well, from my perspective, I think it's very evident. The United States trade deficit has been significantly reduced. We just saw the figures from the Bureau of Economic Analysis that show that the 3-month moving average of trade deficit in the United States is between 25 to 30% lower than in the 23 to 24 period. I think also very significant tariff revenues, $200 billion collected in tariffs. And what we have seen is that it has not impacted economic growth in the United States. The latest figures of GDP growth show a private sector GDP growth of 2.4% and a 1.4%, including the impact of the government shutdown in government spending. And we have seen also that the disinflation process is phenomenal, that there has been no inflationary pressure from these tariffs because, as we have discussed a number of times and with you, Don, is tariffs are not the cause of inflation. What causes inflation is government spending and money printing. Tariffs may be discussed from numerous perspectives, from a global perspective, from a geopolitical perspective, and even from a trading perspective, but certainly not from an inflationary pressure perspective. And it's pretty obvious in the data that has been published, both officially, but also in the independent data collected by analysts that are showing that disinflation is very, very clear in the United States.
Okay, Daniel, just one last question. Do you think without the use of the IEEPA rule, the act that was ruled illegal by the Supreme Court, do you think without that Trump loses any power in terms of negotiation using tariffs, any leverage that is lost? Because President Trump said under that rule, he used tariffs to end 5 wars. So without this, I mean, just your overall thoughts on this. Does he lose any negotiation leverage?
He doesn't lose any negotiation leverage. In fact, unfortunately, what the Supreme Court is doing, and certainly not willingly, is put the United States president's tools more on the aggressive side. Is that instead of something as the Liberation Day tariff announcements, which was clearly, and we discussed it here as well numerous times, which was clearly a tool for negotiations and to enter into the trade agreements that have been successfully closed, what the Supreme Court is basically saying is that the president has all of the tools that the different sections of the trading laws give, and on top of that, an embargo possibility. So I think that his position is actually one in which today his negotiation power is stronger, because the previous one was clearly a negotiation tactic. The next options, once that has been ruled out, are all straight up tariff implementations and trade threats implementation, because they're all national security and unfair use of trading measures from other countries. So from my perspective, I think that the Supreme Court ruling strengthens the position of President Trump in terms of aggressiveness of trade policy, but I think that it also strengthens the position of President Trump because it is clearly showing that the trading partners, who are not stupid, obviously, would face significantly higher tariff charges if they broke their agreements, and therefore it is very likely to end up being something that is, one, not contested, second, will be likely something that will make other trading partners that have not reached trade deals reach ones very, very quickly.
Right. In addition to what you're saying about strengthening the president's power, I think it also gives clarity as well, because the other rules have been legally tested, as you alluded to as well. So, Daniel, thank you for giving us...
that's very important because... Yeah, that's very important because we also have to remind people that when we talk about all these rulings, is that the Obama presidency, the Biden administration, the Clinton administration, the Reagan administration, all of them have implemented them in the past. Yes.
Right, right. Well, thank you for giving us your comments. Pleasure speaking with you as always.
As always, thank you very much.
U.S. and Iranian